Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sonny Wasserman. I'm back for the multi whatever it is, 250 something Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Zoom call. We have a ton to talk about, of course. We're going to start very quickly in Minnesota with someone from the Somali community. Then we're going to talk about homelessness. We haven't talked about it for a while, and I do want to get to it because, of course, as we all know, Donald Trump is building a giant homeless shelter right next to the White House. That's a joke, folks. Then we're going to talk about a serious question. Does ICE qualify as the Gestapo? I wrote a piece, sent it around. It's at freepress.org. And I had an editor write me and tell me that he did not think it was appropriate to equate ICE with the Gestapo. So, I told him, look, man, the Gestapo didn't wear masks, but we'll have that discussion. In the second hour, we're going to deal with energy, with nukes, with Elon Musk going back to solar. Who knew? And I do want to congratulate. I watched the Super Bowl, as many of you did. Another really boring Super Bowl. What can I tell you? But the halftime show, I was very happy to see for the first time in history that the halftime show was conducted entirely in Yiddish. Oh no, wait, that was Spanish. Sorry. It was a great show. Really a mind-boggling show, actually. I did not see the other one, but I saw reviews. I guess the MAGA people
Call
put on
has been forwarded to voicemail.
the MAGA people put on their own halftime show. What the heck? And Donald Trump officially hated the Bad Bunny one. I think he's a good bunny, actually, but what can I tell you? So we're with HEDY Trip in Minnesota. HEDY, can you introduce the guest you have brought to us from the Somali community? For all our diversity in these calls, we have yet to have a real representative from the Somali community.
Yes, Ahmed, are you with us? I know you're on the Zoom. Can you open up your video if you mind?
And Hetty, just for the record here, we have a very large radio audience, but the visual people, can you
Oh,
clarify
yeah.
that you're not actually outside in the snow and ice there? And
No,
that it's a balmy
no.
32 degrees in St. Cloud, right?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can
Oh,
unmute
good.
myself now.
Oh, good. So this is, I'd like to introduce Ahmed Abdi. He's one of our very progressive Somali folks here in Minnesota, part of the Somali radio. And Ahmed, you can introduce yourself. And I guess one question I would pose is, what is it to be a Somali in Minnesota right now?
Hello. I was
Yes,
trying to turn on my camera, but somehow.
it's okay. Just go ahead and as long as oh, there you are.
There you go.
And we can hear you, and we do have a large radio audience. So I must say you look very good on radio. So
Yes.
Get please and tell us, Hetty has brought you to us. Please talk to us about being Somali in Minnesota now.
Thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you, all of you. My name is Ahmed Abdi. I lived in St. Cloud, Minnesota, more than 20 years. I work in a local FM radio here. So that's what I do for now. And Somali community, there's a very large Somali American population here in St. Cloud. I would say St. Cloud, Minnesota has the second largest Somali community on St. Cloud, maybe close to more than 10,000 or close to 20,000 families are here. Yeah, it has been very tough, not only Minnesota, but what has been happening the whole United States. And I think there is a agenda that's specifically targeting immigrants, refugees, minority communities that become a priority agenda of MAGA and the current president. And that's harming specifically Somali American community. And this is an agenda. It's not only for this time. Last term, when President Trump became a president, he banned refugees coming from at least 7 different countries, what they used to call Muslim ban. I think that was a discriminatory policy, discriminating people just because of their background or religion to come to the United States. So we were expecting, I mean, second President Trump's term, things will get worse. And that's what we're seeing now. But I think a Somali community, a very strong community. We have been in a very, difficult time. So we can take it, whatever they bring. So because we are very community oriented society, we are dependent on each other. We are dependent on each other. Some of the things that I would like to share with you, ICE. Let me say something. The Somalia, it's an East African country. It doesn't have a border with the United States. So it's very difficult Somali person to come to the United States illegally. You have to fly from Africa to go to Europe and then come to the United States. So 95 or so percentage of the Somali community who are here, they come to the United States legally through some kind of refugee program. I also came here to the United States more than 20 years ago as a refugee. Some of my parents were here. They sent us a sponsorship. So the majority of the people who are here are legally, either they are refugee or permanent residents of US or US citizens. And there's a kids that were born in Minnesota. Some of them, they are going to university. So, but were targeting what I believe. So Somali community was related to a political between the Republican and DFL. Somalis are blamed, and that's where this whole agenda of MAGA and Republican is coming in. Somalis, they have been part of Democratic Party, and that's where all this is going on, targeting Somali American, and I call this a political persecution. They are persecuting Somalis or going after the Somali citizens because of who we vote or who do we support. And that's why Tom Ammer, who is the congressman of this area, is going after some Somali people. That's why Trump is going after these people. That's why he's ordering all his executive order to go after us. It has related to the political agenda, has nothing to do with some kind of illegal. In St. Cloud, I think they want to show to the might be their supporter that they're doing something about it. So they were arresting people who come to the United States legally, like refugees. They took from at least a couple of people from here. They took to Minneapolis detention facility. Some people, they took their documents after those people, they were refugees, but they refused to release them. And those people were sent to Texas, and judge in Texas released them because, and he says, these people are legal here. And also we are helping last couple of days, people who are US citizen, they arrested them. They took their phone away and never give back their phones now, where we believe they are looking their phones might be something else to criminalize those people. And after the first arrested, after 10 days, they came back to St. Cloud and arrested at least 3 Somali US citizens, and they charged them some kind of crimes. So it affected to the community a lot because they were attacking specific neighborhood and specific businesses. They were parking their cars in specific businesses, and that affected, I mean, the businesses community, people are afraid to go to the market to do some shopping, especially small groceries. And also because they were targeting specific neighborhood, they created this anxiety. People are afraid to go outside because there is an ICE. They using this kind of technology that they know who lives in a specific area, who drives specific cars or have a plate numbers. People, they're tracking with their phone, all those things. So it is, in general, it was very bad affected. And I think this is, I have never seen something like this. And I never thought something like this can happen in the United States at this time, where whole government can go a specific minority group.
Wow, thanks.
It's really amazing, really amazing. And are you in Minneapolis?
No, I and Haiti, we live in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I've been in St. Cloud, Minnesota for more than 20 so years. So I'm in
But
St. Cloud.
the radio is throughout Minnesota, correct?
Through online system, but it's a low power FM. People they can listen St. Cloud, Sartell, but others they listen through website. Our website, we do have a streaming on our website.
Okay. Mila had a question.
I do, and Hedy, thank you so much for bringing Ahmed to us. And Ahmed, it's just a pleasure to have you here. I am wondering, Sunny and I are both on the national board of the Pacifica National Board, Pacifica Radio, and part
I
of
cannot hear you very well. I'm not sure if it's
Oh,
on my side or if you
is
can
it
get close.
can Hedy, can you, is this better?
Yes, a little bit.
Oh, good. I'm sorry about that. I was just saying that both Sunny and I are involved with Pacifica Radio and the Pacifica affiliates, and I'm wondering, is your radio station a part of the Pacifica affiliate network? If not, maybe we can facilitate that,
Yeah.
and it would be great because through the Pacifica affiliate network, you can offer your radio programs to radio stations throughout the country. There are about 200 that might be interested in picking up some of your reports.
Yeah, recently, what we did is that working with the other group, recently we invited other media, such as television and radio, to document it and report in the minority community. We did a lot of news in Somali language, but we want to work with others because there is a lot of false narrative about the Somali community whole in general in the United States. And that started from the president and this, whatever they are. I don't consider this is a normal government system. They started Fox Channel. They have a propaganda news against Somali people. So we want to work with other media just to tell the true story from our side. There's a lot of false narrative. So yes, we will work with others also.
Great.
In terms of also the access stories in the community too.
Well,
Yes.
I will be in touch with Hedy, and maybe we can coordinate and get you involved with the Pacifica affiliates.
Thank
Over
you.
200. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be a big deal. There's 250 affiliates with Pacifica, and your stuff would go out, and then you would also have access to other programming from Pacifica.
I apologize for the interruption because I was told to unmute. Ahmed, Mr. Abdi, I wanted to ask, did you know that Merrimack, New Hampshire, they're going to be protesting against an ICE facility that's going to be, and that's in the works? I wanted to ask, I want to let you know that I have a fellow progressive.
I did not get that question. Let me think I'm in mute somehow.
You're good. You're good. We can hear you.
I'm sorry about that, but I also want to let you know that as a Jewish woman, I understand what it's like to constantly have to worry about being heard because of my faith. And one of my friends,
I think I
Jewish-
cannot hear any voices now. I don't know.
She's speaking. Can you hear me?
maybe
Ahmed?
I should write all
one
this down in the
second.
chat and he can read it if he can't hear me.
Okay, put it in the chat. Can you hear me, Ahmed? I guess not.
Ahmed, can you hear us?
Maybe
We
his
hear you
mic
fine.
is broken or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
All yours, Sunny. No, I can't hear you.
Hedy, can you give us an update on what's going on in Minnesota?
Well,
And by the way, we're joined by SUSIE Shannon from LA, and I'll turn to her after I get an answer from you.
in Minneapolis in particular,
Both.
the resistance is getting stronger and stronger, but the ICE agents are specifically targeting areas I know that school buses are still being followed, and when they stop at the bus stop, ICE agents will confront parents picking up kids. So, it's changing every day. I know that there are resistors who have been arrested, especially at the Whipple Detention Center, and being charged as being, domestic terrorists or even felons. So you've got this change happening. But, there's more than 2,000 ICE agents still in Minnesota. The 700 that left is just a drop in the bucket. I'll be at the city council meeting in St. Cloud. The city council is pretty conservative. All I can do is, state my case and our case and take it from there.
See, Mr. Abdi has rejoined
Yeah,
us.
can you hear us? Can you hear us? Mr.
Yes,
Abdi?
yes.
All right, so Susie, what more can you tell us about what's happening in Minnesota? And I want to introduce you to Susie Shannon, Susie, you're working with the homeless in Los Angeles. Have you worked at all with the Somali community here, which I know is substantial?
Not specifically. I mean, we work on homelessness and housing. It's not specific to any demographic, just people who need housing or people who are unhoused and need services.
Okay, well, we're going to come to you if you can wait for it with us. We want to talk about the homeless situation here. I'm hoping Joel Siegel will join us if we can get him the link. Mike Hirsch, go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Abdi, I know that the Trump administration is demonizing the Somali community with regards to a child care scandal that, can you tell us a little bit about that? I know that some right-wing influencer has made allegations, and I'd just like to hear your response to that.
I have been working in the media more than 20 years. I know a lot of things that's happening has related to agenda. They want to build something that they want to do in this country, including banning certain people to come to the United States. I do believe the whole reason that they have been persecuting specific communities, especially Somali communities, for food on childcare has something to do with bigger agenda that this administration and MAGA has. They want to ashamed or make that Somali community are criminals. Like I want to give you like this during the coronavirus time, the United States, I think, give more than 30 billion, something like that, a lot of money. I'm not sure how much, but they started only persecuting the Somalis specifically. They're going specific businesses. They're going, specific individuals. So this is an agenda that whole, I believe, MAGA, Trump, as after this group, Somali group, and that they want to build a case. Such cases that we see now is that recently I've seen a congressman who went to the, I think he has a bill that he want to take to the House or the Congress, that he want to ban Somalis to come to the United States next to 25 years. So this is an agenda, or MAGA and Trump has it. This is why this accusation is coming from. And this is not only in the United States. The Trump has, like, for example, bigger agenda. So we do believe this has something, crimes happen, fraud happens, scams happens everywhere. There's a lot of white individuals that's fraud in this country more than any other group. But if white individual commits a fraud, nobody comes and say, we have to do something about white community because this individual is from white community and he did this. Other groups also, they can do some crimes, but this has been translated to a political motive. Mainly who are doing, I do believe, are the Republicans who are doing this. If you look every state who are talking about this fraud in Minnesota are the Republicans. So it became their agenda. And the whole hate of this Republican agenda about Somali people, it become this because of Somalis have 90% or 95%, they have been supportive or working with the DFL or voting. So that's why, don't bring these certain people because they will vote DFL. Bring certain kind of people because they will vote for us. This is an agenda. So individuals or businesses can do crimes or fraud, things like that. But this is more than that. And I think it will never stop until they reach their political agenda or maybe this coming election. Why all of them, they're talking about the fraud is something related to to this community. They want to tie to the Democratic Party, and then they want to say, okay, Democratic Party cannot run Minnesota. That's why our state governor, who's very decent man, he could not deal, and he's not running. It's just because of this propaganda agenda of,
Right.
mega, So I do believe it's related to propaganda.
Just for clarification, you mentioned the DFL. Not everybody may know that that's the Democratic Farm Labor Party in Minnesota, which is essentially the Democratic Party. We have a hand from Dorothy Reich. Dorothy?
Hi, so you won't let me turn my camera on, but this is not just about Somalis. This is about all Black people. The mission of these people, which they'll never accomplish, but their mission is to make this a white Christian country. And that's what they're trying to accomplish. They're going after the Haitians in Springfield next. They're just moving along, trying to get rid, and they can't. Obviously they can't, but that's what they're trying to do. And they'll keep trying to do it, even though they can't succeed at it, because they're hateful, horrible people.
Well, I want to ask you specifically about how people are treated. I wrote a piece that's on freepress.org. Everybody can take a look. Equating ICE with the Gestapo. And the use of the term was challenged by an editor who said it was not appropriate to equate the Gestapo and ICE. And my response was that the Gestapo didn't wear masks. Given how people are being treated physically in Minnesota, how do you feel? I know a lot of people are using the term. How do you feel about the use of the term Gestapo to describe what ICE is doing?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah, please.
Well, beside, I
Hedy.
don't know nothing about the Germany and what happened at that time, but I came from Africa. We have been under a military regime. One time, Somalia was under Soviet. I don't believe that we are in the United States that we know anymore. We are some kind of dictatorship, under a dictatorship, or we are in some kind of under military regime in the United States. The reason that I'm saying, or secret army service, if ICE is a federal immigration agency, they don't need to hide their faces. If they are looking for anybody who is maybe, criminal, you don't have to hide your face. Why are you hiding your face if you are doing a legitimate business? This is ways that organizations around the world that harm civilians actively work. They are going specific, like for example, when they took refugee individuals, they say we want to take back everybody that came under Biden. How you can take someone out of the country because he get a resettlement when Biden was the president. Another thing is that why I think this administration, it's not like something that we have seen before. Like, for example, they take citizens their phones. We have 3 Somali American who are U.S. citizen. One of them finished university here. Another individual, he drives his truck, and another one is a student at the university, and all other citizens, they took their phones. And we heard they're hacking their phones to access your Facebook, access your WhatsApp, your emails, your phone, your text messages or your pictures. One specific guy told me he does have a very private pictures or conversation with his wife that lives back in East Africa. So they are committing, heinous stuff. Why are you taking their phones and investigating, which we believe they are looking something that they find crimes among these people. And this is why I'm saying it's an agenda. They're planning to take your citizenship away. There is Tom Ammer, that's some of the things that he's doing to bring a bill to the Congress. So if you come here to the United States, you become neutralized, but you committed a crime. In the history of the United States, you will spend a prison if you committed crime. But they want to take your citizenship and deport it, So that's why we believe the reason that they are taking their phones away is just to look any crimes that they can connect to these people so they can find, some, So
Well,
I do believe, and they did make also scary because they're going specific. They didn't come to St. Cloud to look for illegals. They came to St. Cloud specifically to target Hispanic community and only Somali community. And all they have arrested in St. Cloud, they were targeting only Hispanic community and Somali community.
wow. Hedy, do you want to add to that? I want to say we're going to have a deeper discussion in the role of ICE in the upcoming election. And we're joined by the great Bob Fitrakis, who was responsible for breaking the stories about the 2004 theft in Ohio. And we're going to return to that. But I've invited SUSIE SHANNON on to talk about the housing crisis. So we're going to get that in, and then we'll return to the election issue. Hedy, do you want, being in St. Cloud, do you want to talk further about what's happening in St. Cloud with ICE?
No, I just want to thank Ahmed. Coming on this radio show you're the first Somali person on this radio show. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for coming, Ahmed. We appreciate it. And we do want you to hook up with Pacifica. That way, among other things, you can run the show that Myla Reason produces, California Solartopia.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
I'll
Lynn
connect you.
Feinerman is also a radio person. She just, so be in touch with her, please. She has a show.
I'll connect you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ahmed, thank you for being with us. Hedy, thank you for the weekly report
Where you went?
Minnesota.
Oh,
We will, and Bob Fitrakis is with Bob. We're going to go to the election issue in a little bit, but I have SUSIE SHANNON on, and I was hoping to get Joel Siegel. I don't know if he's on with us, but we want to discuss. This came up for a number of reasons, but I'm in a neighborhood in LA where the CVS just went out of business. And it's basically on a big, and SUSIE knows where it is. It's on a busy corner. It's got to be an acre. The whole lot has to be an acre. And now this whole vacant lot, the lot is vacant and the building is empty. It's got to be 10,000 square feet. And the question is, in my neighborhood, as in so many around the country, if they tore down that building and tried to build housing for the homeless, it would never happen. They'd be tied up with the zoning board for the next 100 years, as SUSIE, I'm sure, can testify. But if they converted the building and there's a term that Joel used on which you convert, if they converted the building to housing somehow, I think they could get under the radar and actually house some people. Now, LA and the whole, in the era of the internet, we have a double situation where office buildings and brick and mortar stores are going out by the thousands. And you have hundreds of thousands of square footage of office space and former retail space that's vacant. So how can we, and SUSIE had a great term, homeless encampments in the shadow of empty buildings. So, and of course, Donald Trump is building, he's calling it a ballroom, but it really would make a great homeless shelter right next to the White House, a combination homeless shelter and soup kitchen. SUSIE, you have just decades on the homeless issue. What do you think about we're at this turning point where the internet, especially since the COVID epidemic, has emptied out tens of thousands of buildings around the country. Can't they be converted to solve the homeless crisis?
Sure. So let me just put this in context really quickly. So across the United States, we have over 770,000 people who are homeless. That figure is growing every year. Just a few years ago, I was talking about how outrageous it was that we had a little over 550,000 people who are homeless. So we are in the middle of an affordable housing and homelessness crisis in this country. People, without looking at figures, people tend to know that, particularly if they live in a metropolitan area where they see growing homeless encampments that are popping up everywhere. And the term that I used about homeless encampments in the shadows of empty buildings is actually really happening. So in Los Angeles alone, we have over 70,000 vacant units of housing. These are units ready to go, not even that necessarily need to be converted. So since 2014, I have been pushing something called adaptive reuse. And that's where we take existing buildings, whether they're already set, with bathrooms and different units like we see in abandoned hotels or motels, or they're like the office buildings that Harvey is talking about, or just buildings that have current infrastructure there. So you don't have to do all the plumbing and the hookup to the local utility. A lot of that is already in place. It also, I think, as Harvey touched on, makes it very hard for NIMBYs to go against it because it's not being built from the bottom up. So there are a number of reasons why we want adaptive reuse.
That's ADAP or is it ADOP?
Yeah, ADAPTIVE, adaptive reuse.
Okay.
So one, as I discussed, there's existing infrastructure that we can take advantage of, even if it weren't less expensive, which it is, and I can talk about the costs. Even if it weren't less expensive, it is faster. So we know that we can bring housing much quicker by converting empty buildings than if we build from the bottom up. It's also very, very expensive to build from the bottom up. So here in LA, it costs between $500,000 and $700,000 a unit to build from the ground up. We literally could buy condominiums for people, and they could be homeowners. We could buy condominiums for people in the San Fernando Valley here for what it costs to build one unit, one 500 square foot unit. So this is why, just basically to bring housing on quicker, for it to be less expensive on average, given how much it costs to build from the bottom up. And we all know that construction costs are going up. The cost of construction materials are going up. This just makes sense. So about 2 years ago, we went to Washington, D.C. to lobby on adaptive reuse and some tenant issues to help renters. And out of that came a bill that is a bipartisan bill. It's HR 2410. And Mike Carey, who is a Republican from Ohio, and Jimmy Gomez, who is a Democrat from here in California, in Los Angeles, are co-authoring this. And it has a lot of great stuff in it. It gives a 20% tax credit for a company a construction company that wants to convert these buildings, but it the one sticking point for us, which we're still negotiating on, is that it's for people who are at 80% of the area median income and below. We want to lower that so it reaches the deepest affordability for underserved communities. And we'd like to see that get down to 50% AMI and below or 30% AMI and below. It's going to require, obviously, a change in Congress for that to happen. But even given the fact that we have a bipartisan bill right now and an agreement with people on the other side of, with elected official on the other side of the aisle on this, I think is a good step forward. We just know, on the other side of this is like the build folks who just want to build. And a lot of those folks want to build luxury, which I advocate for underserved communities to get more housing because that's where we see the biggest dearth of housing is for people who are low income, very low income, extremely low income. So we're having this debate. Even if you're not paying attention to it, you will hear people say, we can't have rent control because it inhibits new construction. It's not true. And inhibiting new construction will be the reason for everything going down in our progressive policies. Pretty soon it'll be Medicare for all inhibits new construction. I mean, it's just like a mantra now for this movement of folks who want to just build anything, any housing. We think there needs to be housing built first and foremost for our low-income communities, need to get all of those folks stable. A low-income renter is much more likely to fall into homelessness than somebody who's making $120,000 a year. That goes without saying. But we really do have a chance here. I know we've made a lot of strides in California. There was about a little over $110 million put into adaptive reuse by our governor here, from Governor Newsom. One of the few things that he's done that we've asked him to do on behalf of communities. And it wasn't dedicated necessarily to low-income communities here in California. And so we're working on another piece where it would be specifically homeless housing. But, we are making strides. And I mean, I remember maybe 15 years ago, a friend of mine saying, we have all these empty office buildings. Why are we not, helping to convert them so that people can live in them? And literally, I've taken photos of these homeless encampments, right in the shadows of buildings like the Cecil Hotel down here. There's one developer, I forget his name, but he likes to buy up these huge buildings in New York and Los Angeles and keep them empty. And why? Because for him, this is a commodity. This is a line on the balance sheet, and it's going to go up in value every year, the property. So there's no need to mess around with renters, right? They're just going to keep these buildings on the books so that they can sell it for, twice as much in a few years. And so there's a lot of that going on.
So Susie, let's enumerate the types of buildings that are now available. I mean, it really, since COVID and the internet, that's really the emptying out of these buildings is rampant. You've got office buildings, you've got retail, you've got pharmacies. A lot of pharmacies have gone out. You got 7-Elevens going out. What other kinds of buildings are available for adaptive reuse? And is there a piece of literature? Is there a document that lays this out so that we can use it for a movement?
Yeah. So here in Los Angeles at the Barclay Hotel in downtown LA, which is in Skid Row, we have an exhibit. And that exhibit actually shows buildings that have been converted. We don't even need to speculate. They have been converted into residential units. And these have included an old train station, a mall, Hospitals, abandoned hospitals are
Wow.
wonderful for creating individual units for people who are unhoused. Here in LA, Hollenbeck Hospital or Hollenbeck Apartments used to be a hospital. Now it's senior housing for low-income seniors. We've seen obviously motels, those conversions were really important for dealing with COVID because cities were desperate to get people who are unhoused out of these congregate shelters where the COVID virus would spread into individual units. And so abandoned motels, motels that lease up maybe, they rent out like 1 or 2 rooms every once in a while. There was like a whole bulk lease, what's called the master lease of these buildings to make sure that people could get into housing that was safe for them, and also come off the streets for housing that's safe for them. So we've seen a lot of that. We've seen elementary schools. We've seen movie theaters. Abandoned movie theaters, older abandoned movie theaters have been converted into housing. So really any building that has enough, it has to be a large enough building, right, to make it, I don't want to use the word pencil out because I hate that word, but to make it like financially stable. So you have to have enough tenants. So at least 10 units, I would say, would be good. But even like in the case of what Harvey's talking about with the pharmacy, you have an existing building, but because it's on so much land, you can expand that building, right? So you could build like, you could annex something,
Well, we could, and it'd be interesting to see the plan. Sorry to jump in, but I know the neighbors will never go for it. What they will probably not fight, or they can lose converting the building as it stands. I don't know how, I doubt this neighborhood would accept additional. So the question then is, but the building is pretty big. I mean, and there must be hundreds of them around the country in a similar situation.
Yeah. And for like there is a lot of housing legislation that's passed in California that makes it less likely that they would be able to stop it, particularly if it's for our unhoused community or extremely, or very low income people. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of NIMBYism. There's no doubt about it.
So is there a website, Susie, that you
Sure.
can?
So if you go to housinghumanright.org, that we have a lot of stuff on adaptive reuse. If you go through all of our archives or on our press releases, there's a lot there. And then you could even look at the findings for HR 2410, which makes the case for this, both from a Democrat and Republican standpoint, so both liberal and conservative, making this point. And what's interesting about 2410 is that it does deal a lot with commercial property. So, not just these kind of motels and stuff like that, but also office buildings, because I think everyone is trying to find a way to deal with this, growing affordable housing and homelessness crisis. This is the buildings are there, the vacant units are there.
Well, not only are they there, but they become, you have a situation, this CVS in our neighborhood is going to be a real negative if they leave it vacant. So in a certain sense, the homeless become an asset.
Yeah.
Because so then who owns I'm sorry, RT, Paul, and Carly will get to you. Who owns the building after you convert it?
Well, so that's the thing is that a developer would have to purchase the land, right? They'd have to purchase it. Or if the city were to take it over, they can as well, right? And the city has taken over land, or they've just bought property. We bought the Mayfair Hotel for like a lot of money in LA, maybe too much. But the city would have to buy it, or a nonprofit developer would have to buy it. And it may be that the person who owns it wants to unload it anyway. But what's great, if we can get, HR 2410 passed, they will get a 20% tax credit, right? So there's a credit that will come along with purchasing that property and then converting it. So
Wow.
we're trying to make it feasible for nonprofit developers and municipalities. I mean, I don't know if they really need it, but yeah, we're trying to make it feasible for folks to,
Right.
go in and convert these properties.
Well, there's one other thing, and then we'll go to RT. Energy. You told me that there's a building in LA that's all ready to go, and you can't get hooked up to the utility. It's
Yes.
insane.
And
Now,
are you, yeah.
this
So,
building around the corner from me, is perfect for solar. They could cover
yeah.
that rooftop of that CVS and power that building with solar.
Yeah. And our issue isn't really solar. So there are, so for 4 years now, there have been 94 units ready to go in a building that already has electricity. It's just not enough electricity for these 94 units. So there's about 20 people living there. And then the rest of the building can't be powered. So we have been waiting for 4 years for the Department of Water and Power to pull electricity to this building. And it's been delayed, 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 delayed. So we are now just waiting for this. We've been told that it'll be next April
Oh, God.
that they can
And
bring
you're in the
power to this
DWP.
building. Yeah, so we've been asking for temporary power, which is something you could do with a generator. Sometimes they put, poles, temporary poles along the sidewalk. And so we have been waiting. Ironically, it's the same building where we had the exhibit on adaptive reuse. So even when you do everything right, you get the property and you try to do the conversion, you can get tripped up with permitting, with utilities, with just people, just not doing the job that they need to do to make this happen.
This is an incredibly important discussion. I want to come back to in 2 weeks, Susie. We have 84 people with us, and this is a situation where it's a perfect storm. And we have, buildings emptying all over the country. I didn't know there were hotels and motels. That didn't occur to me. Hospitals, schools, office buildings, pharmacies, they're all going vacant for various reasons. And there's no reason, of course, in my world, for not putting solar panels on top of them, and then the home has become an asset. I mean, this building down the street is going to be derelict. What, they're just going to let it sit there? If they knock it down, they've got a vacant lot. Nobody's going to build there. Okay, Susie, this is great. I don't know what happened to Joel Siegel. If you turn up, Joel, please raise your hand. And RT, Paul, and then Carly. And then at the top of the hour, Bob Fitrakis, we're going to start to discuss the election and ICE, please. RT, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to make a comment on, because this issue is becoming somewhat of something that I'm because it's affecting me seriously. I'm paying attention to it more. I just like to say that I'm from Hawaii, and at one point I was homeless. My husband is a carpenter. He's a Finnish carpenter, and he made up to $60 an hour, and he was still homeless. And I was homeless for a month, and we lived in a place that was, the only place that was there was a place that we rented. He couldn't find a place at all, but we did rent a place that was kind of busted up.
Okay.
But it was a senior woman who was disabled, and she had a duplex, and she was renting it out to get some money, and it was basically pretty busted up, and there was no other option. So
yeah.
So
Yep.
I'm trying to make a point here that
please. Go ahead.
That we wouldn't have ever had that place if there were to have such strict standards. So we moved out of there. We came to California, and that was the only way we could buy a house. And so we bought a house, and we actually now have a duplex and a small rental. And I would just like to say that these laws are really that they're trying to pass and everything are really they're gonna, I mean, they're gonna devastate small mom and pop people like me and my husband. He's worked all his life, and right now he's up there working on his our little house right now, and he's been up there 3 months breaking his butt.
Okay. Okay, thank you, RT. We appreciate that. And we can't use language like that, unfortunately, on these shows, but we appreciate your story. Thank you. Paul Newman. Paul?
Hey, how are you, Harvey? And hi, Susie. Good to see you again from ADA and Tad. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is I live in Santa Monica, and there are a lot of these luxury apartments that are empty. And I know this is rumor and hearsay, but there's a guy named, his name is Leo Postilnikov. And there's many people saying that a lot of those units are being used to money launder as losses
Right.
and by the Russian mafia. And it's interesting how the city council has used there was a lot of development. And when I spoke to some of the members, like Tamara, who is the mayor pro tem, she said, well, people need a place to live. But, I'm wondering if this is a myth that there's a shortage,
Well,
that
this
they're
is how
generating
Trump,
a false shortage, in other words.
yeah, this is how Trump got started, by the way. He was bankrupt many times in the 80s. And when the Soviet Union went out, all these billionaires used Trump's real estate to launder their rubles. The hidden story, one of the many hidden stories in the Epstein files is that Epstein was a money launderer. And he and Trump were laundering rubles into dollars through vacant properties. And I'm sure that's going on in Santa Monica. Susie, what do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't comment on how they're being used, but if they're not being used to help house people, then that's a problem. And we did try to fix this. So similar things are happening in San Francisco in terms of buildings having a lot of vacant units. And so they passed what was a vacancy tax. And it was on a sliding scale. So the longer that you kept your unit vacant, the more money you had to pay. And the courts threw that out.
Oh,
So
man.
Oh my God,
But is
why?
it true? Is there really a vacancy problem, or are they generating it?
I think that okay, so there is a problem where we don't have enough units, but that problem is at the low income and low moderate income levels, right? So obviously we need luxury housing like we need a hole in our head, right? That's
Right.
typically luxury housing is housing for people who are already housed, who then want to move into a better place. And the place that they move from is not affordable for low income people. So I'll give you one statistic. So from 2014 to 2021, LA released their housing element statistics for that like 7-year stretch. And what it showed was that based on something called RENA goals, so we have goals for every single city in California on how much we need to build at each income level. The city of LA in that 7-year period overbuilt based on the goal 72,000 units of luxury housing that
Ah,
no one really needed. And they underbuilt for our low income and low moderate income folks. They underbuilt by 35,000 units. So developers, given their druthers, will continue building these luxury units even if they have to keep their building half full. And as one developer said to me, I would rather keep my building half full where I make enough of a profit based on what I'm charging than to bring in a lower income element to my building to basically mix with the other tenants. So that's what we're dealing with. So there's, discrimination right, class discrimination, which of course we all know about, and underserved communities who get screwed, and if you just let developers go off and do whatever they want, and not have to respond to the needs of the community. Um, but you see, like, they're just, this is a line on a balance sheet. This is an asset for them. They're not trying to be a benefit to the community. The only time they're a benefit to the community or provide any low-income housing is if a city demands it. Otherwise, left to their druthers, they're just going to, the build, build, build model is really for people who are wealthy, people
Right.
who, still can't maybe afford to buy a place, or for investors.
It's the same as drill, baby, drill and energy. So there you go. Susie, it's great to have you on. If you'll come back in 2 weeks, I want to continue this. We have
Sure.
89 people with us. Carly, Karishma, David, and then we're going to go to energy. I think we're going to be joined by Kevin Camps, and we've got the great Carl Grossman with us. Carly Fines, go ahead, please.
Hi. Susie, I did want to mention this, and I think, and if you've been at this a long time, I'm sure you have an answer, but you did talk to people with accessibility needs about what they need for these converted housing units, right? Because
Yeah, so there is, so this is on the builder end, and I'm not a builder. But yeah, people are entitled to accessibility. I think for older buildings, you'll find this in New York, LA, and San Francisco, and definitely in Chicago, where accessibility is an issue for apartments that are on upper levels that don't have an elevator, right? And so we all know, we all know,
yeah,
seen those buildings. That is an issue. It's definitely an issue. I think here in LA, the way that I've seen that addressed is that the units for people with disabilities will be on the first floor typically, and then they can put in a ramp if there's like going up. But it is definitely an issue. That is a
Right.
real issue.
Well,
yeah, because a lot of these homeless people are in fact homeless disabled veterans. So
yes.
shouldn't we
And,
be
and
rolling out the red carpet for these people and giving them the penthouse suite, as it were? Because they deserve it after what they've been through
well,
on our behalf.
a lot of
Yeah.
these big
And that,
box stores are on the ground. The CVS down the street that went vacant, that's a one-story building. So,
yeah.
there you go.
So for conversions, right. So for older buildings or older hotels or motels, this is an issue. But like what Harvey is saying, so for commercial buildings, a lot of those buildings have to be accessible to be built to begin with. So the pharmacies, the schools, all of those will be accessible, right? Because they have accessibility requirements from the get-go, or they would have to have been converted in a way that makes it
Right.
accessible for students with disabilities, for customers that are coming in, for office space as well. I mean, I would say since the 1970s maybe or 80s, office space would have to be, I mean, it depends, it's city to city, so don't hold me on this, but for the most part, they do already need to
Yeah,
be.
they're ADA. And
Yeah.
Susie, if you want to, if a couple of weeks, if you can bring Congressman Gomez on to talk with us about this, we can build. I think we need to create a document. Is there a national inventory of vacant buildings?
No.
That would be great to have.
So the way that we found out that there were 70,000 vacant units in the city of Los Angeles was that the DWP, and I think it may have been through a public information request, had to document what apartments were not, so there may be even more, but the apartments that are not running meters, so you know that they're vacant over a certain amount of time, they document that.
Well, the DWP, which is, for those of you who don't know, the Department of Water and Power, which is municipal owned, is not the biggest area of utility in Los Angeles. Edison is bigger, And I'm sure that they've not been complying with any public requests like that. But anyway, this is fascinating, really fantastic. Karishma and then Dave Saltman, and then we're going to move over to energy. Susie, it's great to have you on. I hope next time we can get Joel Siegel to join us. Karishma, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So Susie, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, I'm from New Hampshire. I'm running for the U.S. Senate here, and I get the housing crisis story a lot. So I have moved away from talking about zoning because that is not necessarily the issue anymore, right? So I do talk a lot about private equity, and the governor Ayad of our state was a board member of Blackstone.
Oh my goodness.
So I talk about private equity, but I actually didn't realize that about the money laundering, that could be at an extent where it's actually impacting our housing crisis. I would love to hear about this. And if you have any sources, if you could share it with me, that'd be
Well, I'll
great.
jump in and give you one. David K. Johnston, CAY is his middle name. He has written entirely about Trump's history money laundering, and that's the foundational story of using real estate to launder money. Go ahead.
Sunny, can you put that in the chat?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Somebody, Mike just did. Okay, Susie, the other question is the issues that you're talking about.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt Susie there. Maybe she's got stuff to add too.
Well, I don't know about the money laundering part of it, right? Because it's the first that I've heard of it today. But I do know that whatever building you own is appreciating in value. And that may be enough for someone. That may be enough for a developer or a landlord to just sit on that property and do nothing with it. So the build folks, it's like, I'm sorry, we have empty buildings that aren't filled here. We have one building, if you look it up, it's called Graffiti Tower. It has been it's not earmarked, for like lower income people. But if you look up Graffiti Tower, you will see this huge luxury building that was built a few years ago by a company that no one in the city can reach now. And people have just graffitied this. There it is.
Oh, I see.
Just graffitied this entire tower that never opened for housing. It's just sitting there, right? And of course, it's still appreciating in value.
Susie, one other question. You mentioned that inventory, there are 70,000 or so that DWP figured out. So here in New Hampshire, we know that the inventory for a rental is less than 1%. So how do I figure out whether there are vacant units, but they're just not on the market because the developer is intentionally, or the private equity is intentionally not putting it on the market, and whether that less than 1% inventory rate is actually artificial? Like, how would I figure this out?
So I don't know how you would figure this out other than the utilities, right? If they're smart, they're not paying utilities on vacant units, right? So the meter won't be running. So you could do what we had to do here, which is do a public information request of the utility to see which of the units are vacant. And they'll see, like the meter's not running for 6 months or even a year, you'll know from that, because they're not going to tell on themselves. No one's going to tell you, oh, we've got half of our building. Now, I have a friend who lives in a building right now, and he is the only tenant because someone inherited that building and decided he didn't want to deal with tenants. So through attrition, people just left. And now he is the only tenant in this building.
Unbelievable. It's really amazing. We got to return to this. This is a fantastic discussion, Susie. And we need to have a website people can go to, and there needs to be a book that people, a document that people can take an inventory, because we are at a crossroads here. Well, there should not be a homeless situation. I hate to say the solution is easy, but it's not, obviously, but it's at hand. We've got 90 people here. David Saltman. David, go ahead. And you who just spoke, Karishna, if you're running for a public office, you need to be in touch with Susie Shannon. Nobody knows the issue better than her. So, David, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to suggest that instead of us wringing our hands and fantasizing about whether or not there are real people living in the apartments or not, I commend Susie Shannon. She knows what she's talking about. This stuff is all a matter of public record, people. The cities keep records of who's living where. And may I point out to the staff of KPFK in Los Angeles, if you're interested, it's an easy investigative report. You don't even need me to supervise it. You guys can handle it. I mean, it's not that difficult.
We'll get Barry Weiss to
The
put
way
it
that we found out, the way David K. Johnson found out about that place in Florida, it's written. It wasn't difficult. So seriously, quit anguishing and saying, "Oh, poor us.
Okay.
This is terrible." Get on it. You can do it today.
Well, I love the fact that Trump is building a homeless shelter right next to the White House. It's going to be a homeless shelter and soup kitchen combined. Melania will be out there, serving the homeless every day. It's very, very touching. But as I say, no one mastered the art of money laundering better than Donald Trump. It's the one thing he's really good at was money laundering, and that's buried in the Epstein files because Epstein did the same thing. As a matter, I don't know if you know the story. I'm going to tell really quickly. This allegedly was the falling out that Donald Trump had with Jeffrey Epstein. They were the closest of friends, and Epstein wanted to buy a mansion near Mar-a-Lago, and as a friendly gesture, he brought Donald over to take a look. He had an issue with the pool. And Jeffrey Epstein was going to pay $36 million for this property. Trump went behind his back and bought it for $40 million and sold it to a Russian oligarch for $100 million, laundering the $60 million in rubles into dollars for this guy. And that's the story. That's one of the many stories that's buried in the Epstein files. So who knew that there's a homeless dimension to the Epstein files? Susie Shannon, put please your contacts. The woman who just talked to us is running for Senate in New Hampshire. Please get in touch. And we're going to return to this in 2 weeks. We're not meeting next week. It's President's Day. It'll be the last President's Day to honor Lincoln in Washington because next year it'll be for Trump, who will be gone, by the way. I'm predicting that Donald Trump will not be president a year from this coming President's Day. You heard it here first. Anyway, Susie Shannon, you're a national treasure. Let's get this together with a website and a document. And of course, LA is. Let me ask you the final question here, Susie. Is there enough vacant housing currently in LA to house all the homeless people in LA?
Yep, and then some, because we have 70,000 vacant units and a little over 41,000 people who are homeless. So we have enough vacant units of actual housing, doesn't even need to be converted, to house every single person that's homeless here in Los Angeles. And we have 7 people die on the streets of LA on average who are homeless every single day.
Oh my God. 7
So
people.
it's a life and death issue.
And so you don't need the CVS down the street. What are we going to do with it? Handball court. It'd make a great handball court. All right, Susie, you know the building I'm talking about. Let's keep that one in mind. Susie Shannon, we're honored to have you with us. I hope Joel Siegel will join us in a couple of weeks, but you will be back, okay? 88 people still with us. Well, we're now going to go. Oh, good. We've joined by Kevin Camps. Kevin, we're going to defer to energy talk for a little bit. I want to bring in the great Bob Fitrakis. Bob, are you still with us?
Yeah,
Bob?
I'm here.
Okay, so listen, we're going to go back to ICE, and Kevin, it'll probably be about 20 minutes, a half hour. I want to go back to Palisades. We got Carl Grossman with us too. So I hope you can stay with us, Kevin. Bob Fitrakis, it's rumored, and this is one of the reasons I equated them with the Gestapo ICE, because the Gestapo had a definite role to play in German elections. They weren't just randomly picking up people. They were also making sure that people and they didn't vote, and they went to the polling stations. The Gestapo in Germany showed up at the election places. What do you, as the real one of the great experts in American elections and American election theft, what do you see as the role for ICE in the election, especially in 26, especially as Steve Bannon has very explicitly now advocated that ICE go to every polling station in America?
Well, again, this has been an ongoing problem. Various groups showing up at the polls for a couple decades now. And part of the issue is what is the role of the state that's played out here. It should be the role of the state. The state shall use its means to register people to vote, but it's not doing that. And in fact, this is the signal. I think you're absolutely correct in terms of they're going to be sent to the polls, particularly in the inner city. This was tried with the mighty Texas Strike Force back here in Ohio in 2004, where you essentially have racist white supremacists showing up at the polls and intimidating people. So think about this. Remember, in Ohio, you used to have 17 different forms of ID that were allowed for you to show as proof on election day. That's down now to about 3 forms of proof.
And plus, of course, the name, the last name, they can demand conforms to your birth certificate, which is a perfect way of disenfranchising the majority of voters in this country, which is women. Because if your married name is different from your birth certificate, which for tens of millions of people it is, they can deny you a ballot. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's all gonna be scrutinizing at a high level, who's got what last name and essentially rejecting forms of ID that historically had been used to allow people to vote.
Right. So this is this SAVE Act, the Safeguard America Voter Eligibility SAVE Act, which passed the House, but I think it has not yet passed the Senate. Is that correct? Does anybody know? And this is
Yeah, that's
I
correct,
believe
Harvey.
you're right. Yeah.
yeah, but and then at the same time now, Steve Bannon, it's not just the mighty Texas Strike Force, or as Greg Palast has written about, the vigilantes in Georgia. This is a government agency that Steve Bannon wants to be present at the voting polls to prevent people of color, basically. I mean, they won't say that, but that's what it is, to prevent people of color from voting. Myla, did you want to jump in?
I do, and this is really important to highlight the SAVE Act, which I believe has not yet passed the Senate, and there is a lot of opposition to it. Hopefully, it'll get stopped. But I just wanted to go back to the Epstein files because Les Wexner's name has been coming up a lot. And I know that you were, Bob, I think the first person to really do any real reporting on the connection between Les Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein. And you all always say that he was referred to as the boyfriend. But now
that comes from the State Inspector General of Ohio.
Oh, okay.
When I met him. And not only that, the Shapiro murder file, a murder file written by the Columbus police that was destroyed, but later a copy was leaked to me, has Wexner involved in money laundering with the Genovese LaRocca crime family.
There you
it's
go.
An actual police document.
And Bob, let me just say that there are a lot of people who are now clamoring to have Wexner before Congress to testify and to talk about all of this money laundering and the fact that a lot of them.
He had full durable power of attorney. Epstein did over all the money, all of Wexner's money.
Right.
And Wexner became very rich. In fact, the only known real source of money for Epstein is, Wexner's money.
Well, let me just point out that Bob broke the stories way back when, linking Wexner and Epstein, and did get at least one death threat because of his reporting. And there is a major documentary which features Bob standing next to the New Albany housing development that Les Wexner built, which we from Central Ohio refer to as Stepford. But nonetheless, but Milo, go ahead. Did you want to?
Yeah, I would. I think Wexner is approximately 90 years old now.
Yes.
But do you think, I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think that it would be fruitful and important to have him deposed? And
He created Epstein's wealth. He, more than any single individual, needs to be deposed.
Well, and it's the thing about the Epstein files, one of many things, it's not just the sexual thing, it's the money laundering thing. I mean,
And it's also
Epstein,
the ties to the intelligence community, because they brought Southern Air Transport, which is formerly known as Air America. They tried to bring them into Columbus, and millions of dollars were stolen from the state. They were clearly running an operation that was blackmailing. They were trafficking not only in young women, but they were trafficking in intelligence
and cash. I mean, these airplanes, the Lolita Express. I wonder how much, how many pillars of pallets of cash they had on the Lolita Express.
And Wexner has ties, as did a good friend of his, to the art market. And a lot of the planes were thought that they used were thought
There you go. And
to
that's
launder
a
art.
Rickenbacker. That the airport, the main airport in Columbus, is named after John Glenn. The Rickenbacker Airport, which is south of town, which is what the CIA used, and Wexner, and I guess Epstein is a smaller airport that's where Hassenfuss flew out of, the guy that crashed in Nicaragua that led to the Iran-Contra story, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Lynn Feinerman, please. Lynn, and then Steve Caruso. Lynn?
Yes, hi, thanks. I keep getting these emails from the progressive lady who's running for office, and the first thing she says is that not only did Donald the Rump abuse and torment a lot of young girls, he actually murdered some of them. And I wonder if anybody else has the sense that behind all these people, including Wexner, is Donald, and that he actually is the mob boss of that entire Epstein operation. I wonder if there's anything you know about it, Robert Petrikis.
Well, you had the charges for the 13-year-old that was supposedly murdered, which has never really been investigated. You also had the control of the police, which was why it was easy to predict that Epstein would die because of the information that he held. But there were calls from out in New Albany from a woman who was being molested by Epstein. I mean, in the act, and Ghislaine Maxwell as well. And those calls were never recorded by the sheriff's department
Yeah.
in the area.
And one thing, people have tried to tell me that Wexner was involved with the young girls. We do know, I taught 14 years in Central Ohio, and many of my students worked for Les Wexner, and not every one of them, to a person, testified that he was gay. So he is married with 4 children, but Bob knows about that. So one thing you will not accuse Les Wexner of is molesting those girls. That was not in his repertoire. But other than that, I mean, and the question is, who was Donald Trump behind the mob, or was the mob behind Donald Trump?
Well, Trump is clearly laundering money, as you've pointed out, for the Russian oligarchs. I mean, that's well established.
And now Trump is in the nuclear business. And we got Kevin Camps. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Donald Trump is now deeply invested in fusion energy, and he's also destroying the whatever regulation was there of the nuclear industry. We want to talk about that with Carl Grossman and Kevin Camps in a couple minutes here. But Bob, it's great to have you here. Steve,
One last thing.
yeah.
Would Oh no, I'll get back to it later.
Okay. Steve Caruso, then we'll go back to Bob, and then we're going to jump into the nuclear dimension. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
one thing this goes to show, and I don't know how, Bob, you did all this. It's just phenomenal the information you come up with, and with our elections in 2024, a few serious people went out there and did some research, got on the streets, asked people, talked to people, got results, and found that the whole thing was a sham. But nobody in the Democratic Party, nobody investigated any of it. Multitudinous errors all over the board, and here we are. You've been talking about this stuff for decades. It's the origin of the HAVA Act and people going to electronic voting. That you're right there, and now here we are. 2024 was stolen. We have
Well, Steve, I want to correct you on that. 2024 was not stolen; it was bought and paid for. You got
well, that too.
Elon Musk pouring in $300 million. It was, he's got the receipts.
It's a 7-level chess game. People. It was taken. It was
Right.
theft. It was cyber war that the Dems lost. We're working on a whole nother level, people. If you're not looking at the computers and stop gapping and throwing your hand in or wrench into those works, then we've got a problem, and we're going to
Right.
expect it if it doesn't get straightened out by fall. And we've heard this argument election after election. We got to do something. We got to do something. Yeah. Well, here's the alarm. Start. It's like the British are coming. Yeah, they're here right now.
They're here,
So
right. Well, let me
they've
tell you,
taken
just for
over.
the record, all the stories in 2004 were broken by Bob. Bob would call me in the middle of the day and tell me what was going on. And then I would write up the piece and I'd send it to him at 3 in the morning. And then at 8 in the morning, he'd correct all my mistakes and put the piece out on the Free Press. That's how all the stories were broken in 2004. And the Republicans couldn't have cared less. We never got any grief from the Republicans about how they stole the election. The only got hassle was from John Kerry and all the Democrats that we knew in Central Ohio. Is that right, Bob?
Absolutely true. I did get a Christmas card from the White House.
But then, you deposed Mike Connell, okay? And they killed their own.
Right. I will
All right.
say, no, I will say I did run in to J. Kenneth Blackwell, the Secretary of State, at an event, and I mentioned my name, and he knew and that I was working with Bob. And what he said about Bob cannot be repeated on this broadcast. He was quite lucid about his opinion about Bob Petrakis.
You could substitute words, like
Yeah, right.
FEK and
Well, I was showing up at black churches where he was going to be the first black elected governor, and pointed out how he was essentially purging voters, black voters, just as they planned to do in the next
right.
election.
So let's return. We're almost done here. And I want to go to Kevin Camps and Carl Grossman, because we do have to talk about the money Trump is pouring in now, to personal money pouring into the nuclear industry. But Bob, what do you predict will be the role of ICE in the coming 2026 election? All these Democrats are saying, "Oh, we're going to win in a landslide." Not
It
if
needs to
not
be
if ICE.
heavy election protection. It needs to be videoed. Everyone's got to get out there because their role is exactly what it looks like they're being groomed for, to show up and intimidate. And this is the same stuff I saw in El Salvador in their first election. They do police flyovers with armed helicopters, and they would send squads in to intimidate. It's just that this time the thug squads are part of the government apparatus.
Yeah, and that's and yeah, Steve Bannon is one of the most transparent guys on the right. I mean, he seems to be, he's always very proud of his repression. He would have no problem calling ICE a Gestapo. He likes the Gestapo. And when the guy who first equated Donald Trump with Adolf Hitler was J.D. Vance, the vice president, and basically it was wishful thinking on his part. He was hoping that Donald Trump would become America's Hitler. And he's gotten, as far as I'm concerned, he's gotten his wish. By the way, I can't resist. And before we go to the nuclear, Steve, I sent you. Has everybody seen the statue that Trump is going to put up at one of the golf courses? It's like a 12-foot, 14-foot gold statue of Donald Trump done by a sculptor in Ohio. Has everybody seen that? Steve, I sent it to you. If you find it, put it up. Bob Fitrakis, this is great to have you, and we'll continue. Is there anything else you want to say before we go to Kevin Camps and Carl Grossman?
One of the things people got to remember about
There it is.
Wexner is that a lot of that really centered around Victoria's Secret. Is that a lot of it was the trafficking of these young models, and everyone knew
And
what
one of
was
the ways
going on.
didn't they entice the models by saying, "Come with us, and you'll be featured at Victoria's Secret."
Yeah, Epstein is caught saying that on many occasions.
So he used Victoria's Secret, the idea of getting featured at Victoria's Secret as a come on to these young girls. I've seen that mentioned a number of times.
Absolutely. That again goes back to Wexner.
So
And
Wexner
again is tied. Again, if you read the Shapiro files, I saw Steve posted it. You'll see longstanding ties between Wexner and old mob families,
wow, and so and
including Eddie DeBartolo.
Who owned the 49ers.
Yep.
Wow. Yes, so there, and that's how Trump escaped his multiple bankruptcies in the 80s, was by using the real estate to launder the rubles coming out of the Soviet Union, the fallen Soviet Union. And that's where Putin came from, because Putin became essentially the mob boss for all these guys who were laundering their money through Trump. And so it's not just pictures of Trump getting a golden shower. It's bank records of laundering money that Putin and the mob in Russia laundered for Trump, and vice versa. Heidi, and then we're going to go to Kevin Camps and Carl Grossman and talk about this nuclear connection. Heidi, go ahead, please.
Yes, I was attacked, sort of like verbally on my Facebook because I was posting pictures of the Super Bowl, and I'm wondering why. I mean, does Robert Kraft have credible ties to the Trump cabal, so to speak? Or is that, I haven't heard anybody here talk about that yet. And
Bob? Robert Kraft. Yeah, I saw a lot of stuff. Robert Kraft, Bob? Does Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, have?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they
When
were
I
saying
when I
that,
was looking at the stuff, I I didn't find anything on Kraft in the stuff I was looking at. Not to say that he doesn't have some connections, but
Well, it's been alleged, and
I
also
didn't
that
turn up anything.
it's
well,
and
they
also
were
that
saying,
Kraft's jets, airplanes were used by ICE. Is that right here, Heidi? Heidi, did you cite that? Because I've seen a lot of internet stuff.
no, I
that-
haven't seen that he was using planes for
Well,
ice, but I,
the plane itself, the actual Lolita Express, used to be owned by the Limited.
which was owned by Les Wexner.
Oh,
So
that might be the
Wexner,
reason why Trump is all excited about this plane from Qatar, right?
yeah,
right.
Exactly. There you
right.
go.
There
Yeah,
you
yeah.
go. So
That the
Kevin
connection,
Camps,
it's
let's
an
let's
asylum
leave
with
So,
over now.
Nukes.
yeah,
Kevin
I'll
Camps
come
and
back another time for this because I really would like to get to the bottom of this because my friend has just really gone
okay,
off the deep end with this.
all right. Well,
I
let's
really
go
am
through it.
anxious to get to Carl Grossman too.
Well, listen, Carl and Kevin, you are the nuclear gurus here, and we're going to talk about Palisades and Holtec. Have you seen any connections between Holtec, wants to rehab Palisades, and organized crime? I mean, they are based in or we're based in New Jersey. Have you seen any organized crime connections, or Carl, between Holtec and organized crime, the nuclear guys?
I've got some data points I can share that
Yes. Well, let me say one other thing, by the way. A couple of weeks ago, we had a discussion about Ukraine, and there's all this corruption in Ukraine, and it's the assertion of the Ukrainian environmentalists and supporters, of course, of the war against Putin, that the corruption in Ukraine came in through the nuclear industry, and that the Soviet reactors in Ukraine were actually funnels for organized crime.
well, perhaps the biggest direct hit on criminality by Holtec is they were implicated in a bribery conviction in Alabama at the Browns Ferry nuclear power plant. This was around 2010. It was a $55,000 bribe by Holtec, implicating its chief executive officer and founder, Krishna Singh. And they were caught. The person who took the bribe, I think, was sentenced to jail, but Holtec's penalty was a 2-month ban and bar from doing business with the Tennessee Valley Authority, who owns Browns Ferry, and a $2 million fine. And then they were allowed to proceed with the contract. So in Holtec's eyes, it was a cost of doing business, $2 million in fine, $55,000 in bribe to carry on this high-level radioactive waste management contract. And then just to, double down on their crookedness, Krishna Singh, the CEO and founder of Holtec, lied about it on a tax break application form in New Jersey. So he was asked, have you ever been banned and barred from doing business with a state or federal government agency? He said no, under oath. They had been banned and barred by the Tennessee Valley Authority. And so ProPublica, to its credit, and WNYC, the NPR station in New York City, outed this lie under oath. And it's still, that came out in May of 2019, that he had lied under oath on this application form. $260 million is what they got. And they used it to build their new headquarters building in Camden. And it's still working its way through the Supreme Court in New Jersey right now. So how many years is that? 7 years on. Justice moves slow. But in addition to that, one of its long-serving advisory board members, Norcross is his name, was indicted for racketeering not that long ago, maybe a year ago, and apparently has beat the rap. And that's what Holtec did regarding the lie under oath. They have so far beat the rap. And so I have to wonder what is wrong with the court system in New Jersey to let these crooks off the hook. We'll see what happens at the New Jersey Supreme Court, but so far they have beaten the rap on that stuff. And then just quickly on to Ukraine. So Holtec has had the contract for high-level radioactive waste management at Chernobyl for many years. What they were supposed to do there was get the waste out of the indoor wet storage pools into a safer configuration, dry cask storage. The previous contractor who had that contract was Areva of France, now called Orano. They really screwed it up. They wasted years, wasted a lot of money. Holtec was their replacement. And a whistleblower came forward to us to let us know that Holtec, this was January of 2020, Holtec had abandoned its post at Chernobyl. They had one staff member at Chernobyl in charge of this huge project. There's 4 reactors at Chernobyl, most of the waste in indoor wet storage pools. So guess what? They had dragged their feet for so long, Holtec, that when the Russian military invaded in February, March of 2022 and seized Chernobyl too, and the power went out to the pools, and so the cooling was disrupted, the only saving grace was that the fuse to ignition of that fuel was very long, because that irradiated fuel had been out of the reactor cores for 2 decades at that point, when they closed Chernobyl for good in about the year 2000. Still, there was a fuse and it was burning, and luckily they got the lights back on, but they've lost power there again a number of times, I believe. And so the point is that Holtec, in its at best incompetence, but it's way worse than incompetence, nearly led to another Chernobyl at Chernobyl, this time the high-level radioactive waste in the pools not being cooled. If that had gone on long enough, the fuel would have caught fire and it would have dwarfed what happened in 1986. So that's some data points on Holtec's behavior.
God, I've never heard that before. So the Holtec had a contract essentially to pull the fuel out of the pools at the 4 units, the 4 Chernobyl units, and put them in dry casks, and they haven't done it?
I believe they've begun to now. I don't know if it's completed yet, but they had abandoned the site and nobody knew it, except this whistleblower came forward and told us about it. And we tried to get the word out as best we could. That effort fell apart. The pandemic was a part of that too. So that's Holtec. Leave them to their own devices. And then we could get into how they behave around the United States, which is god awful. They are close, unfortunately, to the Zelensky regime, the Zelensky administration, to the point that a couple years ago, not long into this recent invasion by Russia, Zelensky and Holtec made an announcement that they were going to build 20 so-called small modular reactors in Ukraine. This was the previous design called the SMR small reactor 160.
Kevin, you're breaking. I think,
well,
Kevin, if you can, you'll have to kill your camera. We love looking at you, but it may make your audio transmission better. So try that now.
Just that Holtec and the Zelensky administration announced a couple years ago now, 3 years ago, that they were going to work together to build 20 small modular reactors. The design has changed to an SMR 300, twice the size of the original design. So does that mean they're going to build 10? Who knows? But it was an outrageous announcement when Zaporizhia was on the front lines of the war, when Chernobyl had been seized by the Russian military. You're going to build more targets?
Is Holtec involved in Zaporizhia at all?
I believe that their waste management contract has extended to other Ukrainian nuclear power plants, but remember that Zaporizhia is under the control of the Russians. So this relationship between Holtec and Ukraine, it doesn't equate on the Russian side. I mean, I call Zaporizhia grand theft nuclear. Russia stole a nuclear plant, the largest in Europe, 6 reactors. They're trying to send the electricity to Russia. So I don't think that Holtec's active at Zaporizhia after Russia took it. Some of the other plants like Melnitsky, I believe that Holtec is in charge of waste management there to some degree.
Well, you know, the Ukrainian environmentalists were very clear that this giant scandal, financial scandal that's been rocking Ukraine, came totally through the nuclear trapdoor. So now the situation, we have Donald Trump within the last month using Truth Social to directly invest in nuclear power, apparently a fusion operation. What can you guys tell us about that?
Well, he's bought a half interest, the Trump family has, in this fusion company. And here he is pushing fusion privately and pushing fusion as, God help us, the US president. And let me just note, we're talking about Holtec and Ukraine, where I'm speaking from, New York. Holtec has become a very big player. In 2021, Holtec bought the Indian Point nuclear power plants. These are 25 miles north of New York City, the most densely populated area in the United States. 22 million people live within 50 miles from the Indian Point nukes. It acquired these plans to decommission them, but in 2025, last year, it announced it wanted to restart the nuclear operations at Indian Point and also place these small modular reactors on the site. It would be the New York version of what Holtec has been in the process of doing at the Palisades nuclear plant in Michigan, first purchasing a closed down nuclear plant ostensibly to decommission it, and then pushing to restart it and also add small modular reactors to that site. In terms of New York, the governor, a Democratic governor, Kathy Hochul, is gung-ho, is personally embracing nuclear power like I've not seen. In fact, I've not seen. She's proposed in her recent State of the State address to build 4 gigawatts of nuclear power in New York, which translates to 4 big nuclear power plants. And last year, she proposed 1 new gigawatt of nuclear power in New York. Furthermore, what Hochul is pushing is a 33 billion, and that's with a B, bailout of 4 existing and very old. In fact, one is the oldest nuke in the United States, nuclear plant. This would be paid by every ratepayer, personally or in a business or a nonprofit in New York over a 20-year period, 3.3 to be exact, $billion. Now, this follows in 2016, New York State arrangement was under Governor Cuomo, a $7.6 billion subsidy to go for 12 years, which is still happening. So we're talking about more than $40 billion in New York State paid by the ratepayers to keep these very old nuclear. In fact, the original owner wanted to shut them down because they weren't economical anymore in New York State. Imagine what $40 billion could be used for with renewable energy, solar and wind and geothermal and so forth. So that's going on in New York State now. And Harvey, you're very sensitive what Newsom is doing in terms of Diablo Canyon in California. Hochul at this point is outbidding him in terms of promoting
Unbelievable
nuclear.
Well, I mean, do these people, they don't care what it costs, apparently. I mean, cost is no object when solar is literally a tenth the price of nuclear generated electricity. They want these Democrat governors want to pour billions in there. Kevin, this sounds like a shakedown to me. I mean, is there any like indication of organized crime? There's no other explanation that makes any sense. It seems some kind of money laundering operation. Kevin?
I call that wealth transfer from the public to the nuclear power industry, handing over the keys to the treasury, whether it's at the state level, at the federal level. And, we do have solid documentation of the corruption and the criminality of the nuclear power industry in places like Ohio and Illinois and South Carolina, because there were federal charges pressed against the
Right.
Speaker of the House of the Ohio State Legislature, who's serving a 20-year prison sentence unless Trump decides to let him out at some point. I know the guy's lobbying for that. And then you got the Speaker of the House in Illinois, who fell from power and grace because of his corruption, closely tied to the nuclear industry in Chicago, the biggest utility, Exelon, in the whole country. They have more than 24 reactors in their fleet. They're the beneficiaries of Hochul's tens of billions of dollars at the upstate reactors. That is Exelon, also known as Constellation. And then in South Carolina, several people have gone to jail. A utility company went out of existence because of the SEC violations that were eventually brought to light at the summer Units 2 and 3 new build project, which unfortunately gets added to the zombie reactor list because it was half built when the scandal broke, remains half built, and now there's an effort to finish construction on these half built Toshiba Westinghouse AP1000s, which that debacle and the one in Georgia did fire up. They were 7 years behind schedule. The price tag went from $2.5 billion per reactor in 2001 to more than $18.5 billion per reactor by now. And so nobody's gone to jail in Georgia. They really should. These are financial crimes against the people. So there's some examples of the corruption of the American nuclear power industry.
And if I could mention two things, Antonius is on the chat, and I just did an interview with him. Antonio Delgado, who is the lieutenant governor under Hochul, but they've split. He's challenging her in a Democratic primary. Beyond money, too, we're talking lives here. Robert Pollard, who was for years a safety inspector for the Atomic Energy Commission and then the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, he coined the term accident waiting to happen in regard to those Indian Point nuclear plants. In disgust, he resigned from the NRC to work for the Union of Concerned Scientists. And one other point, now owning Indian Point plants, Holtec, not much of a difference. Holtec is in the process of it's getting ready to dump more than 1 million gallons of radioactive water into the Hudson River. There was a bill passed in the New York State Legislature, Save the Hudson Act, to stop it. This is in 2023, but 2025, last year, a federal judge decided that this New York state law was unconstitutional because federal authority, said the judge.
Right. In other words, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is controlled by Donald Trump, who has personal investments in atomic power. I mean, and Holtec is right in the middle of all this. Is Holtec still based in New Jersey? I thought they moved their
No,
headquarters.
it's in New Jersey, Camden, New Jersey.
Right.
It's never run a nuclear power plant. It's active globally, but never. It doesn't know how to do it. That's the main issue with Palisades or Indian Point.
Well, I didn't know they were at Chernobyl. That's a new one on me.
They've
Amazing.
been at Chernobyl for probably a decade. I always forget what year. It's been a long time.
Wow.
That's why it was so scandalous that they took their sweet time on emptying the pools so long that they almost went up in flames.
Lynn Feinerman, I think Vina Colley was on the hook here.
Yeah, Vina is here.
All right, Vina, go ahead, and then Lynn Feinerman. We got 66 people with us.
Vina, you ready to go? She kind of bopped out there.
Hi.
There she goes.
I was just wondering what's the difference in the Russian small modular reactors and the small modular reactors they want to put here at Piketon, and also does the small modular reactors fuel the data centers they're wanting to put in here too? I mean, they're wanting to put them on about every corner in Ohio here.
Well, the small modular reactors that Holtec is proposing to build in Ukraine are the same design. They want to build 2 of them at Palisades and fire them up by the year 2030, in addition to the zombie reactor restart. Incredibly enough, there are, I believe, 129 different so-called small modular reactor designs. I forget how many companies involved. What it is pigs at the trough. No offense to pigs. There is so much money being thrown at the nuclear industry, not just in the US, but worldwide, that all of these companies are racing to try to get some of this incredible largesse compliments of taxpayers. And there's been a bad start, surprise, surprise. Like the lead project in the country was NuScale, trying to build, I believe, 8 small modular reactors in Idaho to export the electricity to Utah, and the cost overruns skyrocketed so that Utah municipalities pulled out of the project and it was canceled. This was 3 years ago.
Right.
And there's projects, yes, they are closely tied supposedly to the AI data centers, but they come up with all kinds of excuses for why they're doing this, and that's one of them.
Well, I think part of it, of course, is that Bill Gates got the clap, so it kind of, messed with his head. Vina, did you want to say something further, and then we'll go to Lynn Finerman?
I know Oaklaw bought 80 acres out here at Piketon, $20,000 an acre to put the small modular reactors here, and they're pushing it big time. And they're pushing these data centers almost on every. You drive out of Portsmouth and go up to Franklin Furnace within a 50-mile radius. They're putting trying to put these data centers in, and a lot of us are here fighting and trying to keep it out.
Well, keep up the good fight and stay with us. I know you're in touch with Kevin and Carl. Lynn Finerman and then Peter Hall.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Vina. Yes, keep up that fight. It's deeply important. Thank you so much. My question is, I believe I have seen that Mamdani has come out and endorsed Hochul for governor.
Well, AOC did. I don't know about Mamdani, but AOC did.
Mamdani did too.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And so what I don't understand is, what is he doing? I mean, if Indian Point has any significant problem whatsoever, NYC is toast or potentially toast. What is going on with that? Does anybody have a sense of,
Kevin,
what?
Or Carl, do you know why Mamdani is going nuclear here?
Well, I don't know if he's necessarily going nuclear. He's just, Hochul endorsed him. It was a big surprise. He's endorsing Hochul. In terms of New York being the area that would be impacted, yeah, I mean, that's been the concern. That was one of the reasons that former Governor Cuomo, even though he supported this bailout, pushed the bailout for the upstate nukes, agreed to close the Indian Point plant because of its proximity to such a densely populated area. And just let me add one other thing. In terms of still the lieutenant governor for a while, Antonio Delgado, I just did an interview with him. He regards nuclear as a diversion from safe, clean, green energy and so forth. Still, it's an uphill fight against Hochul, who's getting money.
Yeah, it's just like Gavin Newsom, everybody's great anti-Trump hero on nuclear power. Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump are joined at the hip. It's sickening. Peter Hall, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to say that we're never going to really get rid of all of nuclear power because it is a consistent source of power.
No,
but
it's
we
not.
need to reduce.
Forget it.
Forget it.
Well,
Forget it.
BS.
Okay.
It's,
Well,
it's a
yeah, you
consistent
could,
course of danger. That's what it is.
right, but there's no
Germany
true.
got rid of it. The number 4 economy in the world got rid of 19 nuclear plants, and they're doing great. We can
Okay,
do the
okay,
same.
but just one of the things is, um, to me, that the biggest problem why they're pushing all of this stuff and other things too is the data centers what
Yeah,
Christian, they
that's
build
a
it up,
hoax.
and
That's
that really sucks into the power, and we need to basically push back on having all these data centers, which are making it
I
difficult
agree with you on that.
to
Absolutely, yes.
basically where now we're trying to basically shut down, say, coal plants or natural gas, which are also very detrimental to the environment, just like the nuclear. And we can't do it because why? All these data
No,
centers open
it's
up. So what are we going to
BS.
do?
They come up with this AI thing. And data centers. It's myth. Then where are the numbers? And they could. I've seen a few of these data centers. They have giant roofs with no solar panels on them. They could put solar panels on these data centers. And if AI is so smart, why doesn't it come up with a way to generate electricity clean and not screwing the rest of us? I think it's all BS.
And I'd refer Peter and everybody to a superb article by Amory Lovins, a giant in terms of energy analysis, who wrote a big magazine article about how renewables can fully power data centers, so they're not dependent on nukes.
Yeah, it's a hoax, Peter. Don't buy that Brooklyn Bridge that have any solar panels on it. Heidi, and then Steve and Mila.
My question just got answered. But
Okay.
the question was, just so that I'm on the record, is how is anybody talking about how we can alternatively power these like data centers and AI centers and stuff like that? So it looks like Amory Lovins, but is there anybody that can help get behind him so that the word gets out, because people seem like they're not wanting to listen to him because he's part of the whole thing, that probably part of the thing that like they killed the electric car, they're like wanting to like not put him into a
Well,
place. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, but you know what, Heidi? First of all, people are fighting these data centers. There's some pretty big fights going on
Okay.
against data centers, and they think they thought they killed the electric car, but they didn't. The electric car is
Right.
going gangbusters. We also have Ron Leonard on the phone, but on the call. We'll go to 420 today and then toke up. We're at 4 o'clock. Thank you, Steve Caruso, for look at that. There's an AI center. Where are the solar panels on the roof? Why isn't the place surrounded by solar panels? And that AI should not be allowed to operate in a building that doesn't generate all the power that the AI needs. That's the bottom line. And the other thing is, by the way, about solar, people really need to look at agrivoltaics. Solar panels in agricultural areas are actually incredibly productive. And there's a tremendous track record of solar panels on canopies in agricultural settings where the agriculture hugely benefits. I mean, I'm a vegan, but especially with livestock, it makes a huge difference because you can grow your alfalfa under the solar panels and the cows can go there. The only danger is the cows like to rub their backs on the thing and maybe knock them over. But other than that, same with buffalo, especially with buffalo. So at any rate, no AI or data center should be allowed to be built that can't generate its own power. I mean, those are huge rooftops. They need cover solar panels.
Don't say that. They'll go to gas because that's what they're doing in New Albany, Ohio, where Wexner and his kingdom are involved, right?
Well, I don't
They're
know.
going to
They're
gas
burning
behind the
tires
meter.
too.
What's
They were,
that?
our friend, I'm trying to remember her name, told us about data centers that were burning tires in
Yeah, it's
Pennsylvania.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And these are creatures, these AI data centers, whose only agenda in life is to get electricity. I don't know how many of you have seen Fern Gully, but Fern Gully, the movie, which is a really cool movie for kids, that's about energy. And the bottom line is, if they're going to build data centers, then put solar panels and power the damn data centers with the solar panels on the roofs. And if you can't do it, then don't build the place. That's enough already. Mila, go ahead.
So
And
I
then
have a
Steve.
few points. One, just quickly, Andrew Cuomo is also invested in nuclear power. He's
Yes.
invested in a company that wants to put mini nukes on the moon. But that's just one of the points that I wanted to raise. I think that the reason that Mamdani and AOC are possibly endorsing Hochul is because they really need her. Mamdani needs her in order to achieve his agenda. He wants to change the tax structure in New York so that he can provide housing and daycare and free buses and all of that. And I think he's relying on his relationship with her. One interesting thing that I wanted to say about Hochul is that in her speeches about promoting nuclear power, she's using that buzzword that was made that was made popular through the Mamdani campaign, and that is affordability. All the Democrats now are using that word affordability, and Hochul is attaching the word affordability to all of these new nuclear projects that she wants to promote. It's the most absurd and stupid thing. It's counterintuitive. No, it isn't affordable, but she is attaching that word in order to promote her nuclear ambitions. She's claiming that it will be affordable energy.
And these people do any research? I mean, they even look at what they're saying, Carl. Do they call you
Yeah.
and ask you for numbers?
And let me add, the other word she uses is advanced. These are new, improved nuclear. It's
No.
not your grandparents' nuclear power. That is such BS.
And
This is
safe, advanced, safe.
Well, no, the other thing they say is it's emission free, which is complete nonsense. Kevin Camps in Michigan, you're obviously running into this stuff. Do any of these people do math? I mean, have they ever heard of accounting when they spout off about the economics of nuclear? I mean, it's insane. Kevin, I mean, look at the numbers in Michigan, for God's sake.
It's a fact-free zone. At Palisades alone, you've got approximately $8 billion going towards the restart. If Holtec gets its way, they've already gotten $3 billion, and another $8 billion essentially going to the two so-called small modular reactors. So a total of more than $16 billion with a B just at the Palisades site. This is mostly federal taxpayer money, but also state taxpayer money. And we have to keep doing the math, because one of the supposed reasons they're restarting Palisades is to preserve good paying jobs. 280 jobs lost when Palisades shut in 2022. So just do the math. $3.12 billion divided by 280 jobs, and you start to get an idea of how much these jobs cost to save, to restore. It's millions of dollars per job. And compare it to the average in Michigan for a state subsidized new job created, $29,000. We're talking many orders of magnitude more per Palisades restored job than they could be creating in other sectors for the same amount of money. So it makes no sense. If Alfred Meyer were here, he might add that it's all about the bomb, people. It's all about the connection between nuclear power and nuclear weapons. They just don't mention it. They've always been connected, but about 2017, Obama's first energy secretary, his second energy secretary, Ernest Moniz, a nuclear engineer from MIT, who's on the board of Southern Nuclear, his payback for helping make Vogtle 3 and 4 happen at taxpayer expense, he came right out and said it in 2017. He said, we need nuclear power in order to maintain our nuclear weapons arsenal. And they had denied that since Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace speech in 1953. So they lie back and forth at every twist and turn. They shuck and jive, and they just hope they get away with it. And unfortunately, a lot of times they do.
Well, that has to be one of the most vexing questions is why is China building nuclear? And because they're so incredibly successful with renewables. We have Ron Leonard on. Ron, if your voice is in any shape, if you want to jump in, that would be great. And I understand you have bought a photovoltaic factory. And I do want to mention, by the way, one of the counterintuitive things that appears to be happening in our country is that, you know, the Tesla car business is in the toilet. They can't compete with the Chinese, and their cars are junk. I mean, the engines might work, but the cars themselves are just garbage. And so Elon Musk apparently is now jumping back into manufacturing photovoltaic cells in a big way, which is really interesting. And I think people need to look at that because, and also, you know, just for the record here, we're in the middle of this discussion. Trump has been remarkably unsuccessful in killing wind power. He's lost at least 5 major court decisions. Now, how much he can mess with the financing is another story. I mean, but he's actually been unsuccessful killing some loans. And I do want to mention, I love this. In California, Biden set up a $1.4 billion part of federal money for Diablo Canyon. And Trump is now stiffing the state of California for at least $400 million. And I think some people are really freaked out about it. I love it. I think it's great. But anyway, so the numbers don't add up, and renewables continue. And I've yet to see a real explanation. Almost all of the big reactors that are being built, I mean, literally almost all of them that are being built worldwide are being built by the Chinese, more than 30. And it doesn't make sense numerically, except that they're building reactors that have absolutely zero safety features. I mean, you know, Chernobyl did not, in fact, have a serious containment. Had kind of a building over it, but that was it. I shudder to think what the reactors look like that they're building in China. And here, of course, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has been completely gutted by a guy who's in the business now, Donald Trump. And we get to say to all these Democrat governors, you know, Pritzker, Shapiro, Massachusetts, Michigan, all these Democrat governors are now in business with Donald Trump, pushing nuclear power, and most of all, Gavin Newsom. It's outrageous. Steve Caruso, go ahead. Still have 54 people with us. We are not meeting next week, by the way. It's President's Day, and we are going to go till 4:20 today. So we got 13 more minutes. Steve?
Yeah, Hochul can look at Georgia. Take her down there, give her a tour of their finances, see what the population is going through, how much it's costing, and where all the nuclear waste is going to, right? The sun's got 1,300 watts per square meter every day. If you had to pay the bill for sunshine, you couldn't afford it, regardless of whether you're, you know, the resident that's in the White House right now. Windmills offshore. What about that? You know, all that's coming to New York, isn't it? They're all
Well,
those
he's not been
windmills.
able to kill the windmill. My understanding, Carl and Ron Leonard, if you want to jump in, my understanding is that he's been unable to kill the offshore windmills. They're being built off New York and New Jersey. Is that right, Carl?
He's tried as hard as he can, but a series of judicial decisions have stopped him. But it remains to be seen. I mean, we see what he's done to the Supreme Court. What is he going to do to these federal court judges who see the need for offshore wind, particularly off Long Island?
Well, it's not just that they see the need, but I mean, I know this is hard for Donald Trump to understand, but there is this thing called a contract. And contracts actually take precedent in a lot of legal situations. You got a wind farm off of New York or New Jersey that's like 98% complete. that
And
he's
then you got, yeah, you get the fact that every day, 2 days, it takes a year for nuclear to create that much energy when renewables can do it in 2 days.
well, you also
I
have,
mean,
yeah, and you have the situation in California where we get, and in Texas, where we get in California 100% of our electricity for several hours a day from the Central Valley, from the sun. And in West Texas at night, it's too cheap to meter. They don't, you can, as they say, the porn hub just goes off the charts at that point. And so the economics of renewables is still booming ahead. And you have
yeah,
a number of countries in Europe now that are getting more than half of their electricity from renewables every
but
day.
look at the argument for using nuclear for weapons. I mean, all it takes is for every country to have a laser defense weapon that can shoot the nukes out of the sky, right? Of course, you're going to be raining plutonium or whatever they got in the bomb, but step beyond nuclear. We don't need it for defense. There is a way around it. So let's move on. Seventh level chess, move on up to the next level, right?
Okay, let's return to Kevin. Kevin Camps, you've been reading. We had Roger Rappaport on a week ago. We've been reading the inside scoop on what Holtec, how badly Holtec has fouled up at Palisades. Is this going to have any impact?
Yeah, there was just a showdown at the OK Corral at 2 p.m. Eastern today. NRC and Holtec had a technical meeting that Holtec requested. Holtec is requesting one of two paths. First path, they find the missing documents in the next week. If they can't find the missing documents, path two is regulatory relief to not have to meet the regulations. And what am I talking about? These are safety critical components on the reactor vessel closure head. They're called nozzles, pressurizer nozzles. They've done bad welding on them, and they can't find the records of even what's been done on these things. And so what they want to do,
Holtec is missing the documentation on their welding.
Well, and it also goes back in time to the previous owners. And Michael Keegan brought this up during the public comment opportunity. The NRC allowed the previous owner, Entergy, to begin destroying documents in late 2020. And our attorney, Wally Taylor, intervened to say, you can't do that. They're talking about restarting it. And NRC allowed the documents to be destroyed. It's a comedy of errors, but it's not funny. I mean, they are flirting with Chernobyl. 3 words or less, flirting with Chernobyl at Palisades.
Is anybody outside our No Nukes community, is any of the media, any of the legislators in Michigan picking up on this?
We have had pretty good media coverage for 4 solid years. It could be better, certainly, but I put those exposés from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists in the chat about Holtec, both at Palisades and in Ukraine. The article about Palisades in the Bulletin just several weeks back was excellent. It got a lot of the skeletons that Holtec's been hiding in the closet out in the open in black and white and shine some light on them. So yeah, there has been some media coverage. There could be so much more, but this could make for a major delay and restart. But that assumes that the NRC is going to do the right thing, which is a false assumption. NRC is going to make this go away somehow. They're going to sign off on it, and away we go. And it's not just this latest problem or the steam generator tubes. It's a long list of safety significant structures, systems, and components, any one of which fails, and you could be on the path to a meltdown.
So have you had any luck with, how about the investment community?
The investment going into Palisades is public money at this point. It's
but they want to do a public an IPO.
I think their IPO plans have been complicated by their screw ups at Palisades. These are self-inflicted wounds. They were supposed to hold the IPO in January. And now it's not clear that they can stick to their late March restart schedule. This could be many months or even years of delay. again, if NRC were to do the right thing, but they're not going to. They never
Yes,
do.
but what you know who would cover this? Have you been to Bloomberg or Reuters or the AP? I mean, these guys have actually given decent coverage to stuff like this.
All three of them have covered Palisades. Of course, they could do more, but AP actually broke the story nationally. It would have been April of 2023 on the significance of what was going down at Palisades. And it was largely due to the work of our expert witness, Arnie Gunderson, and our legal team that made that happen. That it was offered as an exclusive to the AP. I'm blanking on the reporter's name in Northern Michigan, but he did a good job.
Well, and has anybody in the legislature picked up on this? I mean, I will say that some of the California legislators are seriously freaked out about this, the $400 million Trump, theft of the federal bailout money. Is there anything and we actually, I think we've got legislation coming up to deal with that in California. Has anybody in the Michigan legislative world picked up on this?
In a word, I'd say no. We're trying. I'm trying. We're talking to them. We're talking to incumbents. We're talking to candidates. We've sent that Vogel 3 and 4 report to the state house in Michigan. I got a little bit of traction, but no action. And so, unfortunately, I think we're behind California in
Well,
regards.
do they know about this? The Holtec's 80 page admission to all the screw ups?
No.
Has that gotten any coverage at all?
There were some media on that call today. I'm trying to think who. A local radio station was there. There were rumors of the Detroit Free Press. You know, it's way less than it should be given the stakes of what's about to happen. Once they restart, all bets are off. This is uncharted risk territory.
Well, I got to say, and everybody listening in, we still got 52 people with us. It's mind-boggling. As I say, we will not meet next week, and we're almost out of time here. But this 50-plus page document that Holtec put together, outlining how they screwed up, that is really powerful stuff. Do you know Juan Cole at the University of Michigan?
Only from hearing him on Democracy Now! A long time
Okay,
ago.
you should go to him. He's in Ann Arbor. And he'll write about this, but we need to get this into media big time, and because that's an incredible document, and Roger is good at writing that stuff up. Kevin, I believe that monument, that document will kill Palisades. I mean,
we'll see. I mean, it's not going to be the NRC like at San Onofre. It wasn't the NRC who shut San Onofre. It was the people.
Exactly. Well, that's what's gonna that document is so terrifying. You know, they have made admitted to technical blunders that cannot be corrected.
You know what's really ironic in Michigan is there's a great movement, to their credit, hats off, environmental groups and others fighting native tribes, fighting the Canadian tar sands pipeline owned by Enbridge across the Straits of Mackinac. It's an existential threat to the Great Lakes. It's like 75 years old. Well, there's another one. It's called Palisades, and we don't have the groundswell like they do on the other one. So it's ironic. We may save the Great Lakes at the Straits against an oil leak and lose it at Palisades.
I'm going to tell you right now that Palisades is never going to reopen. That document is the nail in the coffin that will keep Palisades shut.
It should be, but the reactor in
You know who's going to do it? You know who's going to do it, Kevin? The financial community. Nobody with any brain, and you got people who have money tend to have brains. In certain places, not their heart, but they don't have hearts, but they have brains. Let's put it that way.
They're not depending on any private money for the Holtec restart for the Palisades.
Yes, but they are doing an IPO, and the IPO does depend on private money.
That is good news. Their IPO seems to be delayed.
So the way to attack is through Bloomberg and the financial community, I believe. And Roger has a tremendous history with that. Roger actually took, as a student 60 years ago, took down a regent of the University of Michigan. And they didn't want to make him editor. They didn't want to let us appoint him as editor of the Daily. And so we have a history here. Well, but that 80-page document will kill Palisades, but it'll kill it not through the NRC. It'll kill it through the financial community, maybe the legislature. If you can find one champion, and we need to do that. Maybe we'll get Jim Harbaugh back at U of M, but something that I will tell you right now, Palisades will never open. Never.
Hope you're right.
Well, it's up to you. You're the man.
Been working on it for 34 years, Harvey.
There you go, bro. All right, listen, we're out of time. It's 4:20. Steve Caruso, thanks for engineering. Mike Hirsch, everybody. Carl, it's great to see you. Kevin, it's really always great to have you on. This was an incredible 2 hours and 20 minutes, as always. We still have 50 people with us. And folks, it's time to go toke up. We will see you in 2 weeks, everybody. And just take a look at that statue of Donald Trump, and you will know that next President's Day, he is not going to be in office. I'm sorry. Palisades will not open, and Donald Trump will not be president a year from now. Okay, everybody, take care. No nukes. Thank you. See ya.